It is nothing new that humans are a very curious species. We often crave learning more about the unknown and creating an outcome from it that benefits us, often at the expense of our judgment and intuition. This story has stayed the same, but it has manifested in many different shapes and forms over time, and the emergence of the internet is no exception. If anything, it gave people more power and more reach to exploit this curiosity through the oldest trick in the book: scams. Their effectiveness largely relies on social engineering, mimicking human sincerity, which has sadly only gotten more effective as technology has advanced. However, during the early internet, scams were weird. They embody a presence that nowadays seems a bit unnerving or maybe even obvious at face value. But at the time, especially with people's limited knowledge of technology, were often very convincing. They played on the ambitions and needs of online users at the time, which allowed them to gain enough recognition to still be discussed today. What was the deal with these strange scams from the early days of the internet? And what can we learn from them today? Now, of course, the root of a scam stems from the fact that it is unsolicited, even if initially the recipient isn't even aware of that. So at the very beginning of the internet, when it couldn't exactly do much, you get what are essentially trial runs of what an online scam would eventually turn into. In 1971, back when the internet was still in its primitive stages known as ARPANET, you would get what is now considered to be the very first ever spam email. It was through MIT's compatible time-sharing system, which allowed multiple people to use the university's mainframe simultaneously. It also gave them the ability to message other users in real time, even those online at other institutions. Now, this was a privilege bestowed to research students who needed certain diagnostic information in a timely manner. But naturally, some people saw it as a convenient tool to get an unsolicited message out there to dozens of people at once with great ease. And that's exactly what they did. An unidentified MIT user on the network sent out an anti-Vietnam war message. There is no way to peace. Peace is the only way. Damn hippies. This user was reprimanded for abusing the system, but remained firm in his convictions. Did this message exploit anybody or do anything nefarious? No, but it was an unsolicited message that nobody asked for and distracted them. It was the first instance of what we now call spam mail, a term which originated from a famous Monty Python skit from the year before, where the word spam is used in a repetitive, annoying manner to interrupt everyday conversation. This seemed rather fitting for this kind of situation, and so the name stuck. Now, I've already done a whole video about spam, so I won't go into full detail, but its presence at this time does give a lot of insight into where the internet was in terms of capability. Obviously, compared to what they can do now, computers at this time were not very powerful. So, unwanted software of this nature was more of a gimmick. It was really meant to be kind of a silly nuisance over anything actually nefarious or damaging. The worst that could happen is you may lose unsaved data if you forcibly shut down your computer. The first documented advertisement spam came in around 1978 in the form of an email from Gary Thurk, a marketer from the Digital Equipment Corporation, advertising one of their computer products. It was sent to around 400 people. Once again, more spam rather than scam. But there is a bit of an overlap in these terms. Not all spam is a scam, but all scams are spam. And these primitive examples foreshadow where things were heading as computers got better. But still, this benign malicious data remained the standard for computer viruses and software over the next decade. But then everything changed thanks to telephones and cereal. Seriously.
Hello, baby. Do I what? Will I what? Oh, baby, you know what I like.
Does anyone under 78 know what that is? It was also in the 1970s, during this explosion in the computing industry, where people made a huge, unusual discovery with telephone technology. A discovery so big, in fact, it would completely change how we design telecommunication devices and essentially lay the foundation for what would become cybersecurity. And it was found in the last place you would expect: a box of cereal. You see, Captain Crunch cereal included a toy buzz and whistle in select boxes over a decade before, in 1963. There it is. Oh, and it comes with a hair. That's not mine. Now, why is this important? Well, unbeknownst to its contemporaries, the whistle can emit a peak frequency of around 2600 hertz. All you had to do was just blow really hard. That's what she said. Remember, in the days of telephones, whether it was while you were making a call or entering a number with a brand new push-dial phone, all those random beeps you would hear was basically the telephone systems talking to each other, listing out protocols that made sure your call got to where it was supposed to be. This is also why dial-up sounds like that. The reason each sound had a different pitch was because it was a different frequency, and each frequency meant something different. And 2600 hertz just so happened to be the same frequency that was used to charge users for long-distance phone calls. In case you didn't already know, calling someone who lived very far away was very expensive back in the 1970s. But as long as you blew this whistle while the phone call was being made, the frequency would basically confuse the phone system and only charge you for the time on the phone from before you blew the whistle, which was often only a couple seconds. In other words, free long-distance phone calls. While by no means the first instance of hacking, the public availability of these whistles helped popularize a growing movement known as phone phreaking. And this particular exploit was discovered by John Draper, not to be confused with Dick Whitman. This entire incident actually inspired Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak to start creating blue boxes, which included a bunch of different frequencies to do all kinds of things to the phone network. They sold these for $150 a piece, and the engineering and business experience they accrued from this eventually led to them forming Apple. In fact, while Draper was in jail for exploiting these phone systems, he would create a program called Easy Writer, the very first word processor made for the Apple platform. That's a lot of interesting little butterfly effects that came from just a box of cereal. I guess you could say it's pretty freaking cool. Yeah. Now, this exploit was eventually fixed by separating the voice channels and command channels. In other words, the signals or sounds that came through the microphone could no longer be heard by the network that handled all the in-band protocol signals. But yeah, you could say that this was one of the first widely publicized examples of online scamming. It was a scam for the corporations, not everyday people, but it was a great example of how phone line infrastructure could be exploited in a deceptive way for financial objectives. And it opened the door to a big problem. What did the internet largely rely on for long-distance communication? Phone lines.
Salutations, madam. Is your refrigerator running? What do you mean it hasn't been invented yet? Who is this, Mae West? You've got quite a mouth on you, hun. Someone owes a nickel or two to the swear jar? Something as miraculous as the art of telephonics should not be exhausting to use. But thankfully, Mint Mobile is here to fix all of that. Bid a nice farewell to impertinent operators, pesky salespeople, and tangly wires. With Mint Mobile, calls are direct, unlimited, and can be done with a wireless phone that fits in your pocket, as it connects your call through radio waves on the nation's largest 5G network, including free calling to Canada, Mexico, and His Majesty's United Kingdom. Now you can talk anywhere, at the speakeasy, at the theater, and while going steady.
Here's where we turn. On the right.
Quiet, dame. You think you can get me in a room with Charles Ponzi? Oh, oh, oh. Society has never been more civilized. And best of all, Mint Mobile is affordable. Just because you put all your money into Wall Street on Black Thursday does not mean you're not entitled to make a phone call. You can choose which data plan is best for you, and you can even buy your months in advance through 3, 6, and 12-month durations. The more you buy up front, the more you save. You can also keep your phone number and your device when you switch over. And it takes just minutes thanks to eSIM technology. It can be done all within the comfort of your own home. And best of all, it comes with a 7-day unconditional money-back guarantee. Over 96% of users say they are highly satisfied with Mint Mobile's customer care. And right now, you can get 50% off an unlimited premium wireless plan just by visiting the link on the screen, which is $15 a month for 3, 6, and 12-month plans. Mint Mobile. It's what everyone is talking about.
As the number of internet users grew throughout the 1980s and 90s, so did the internet's infrastructure, which at this time made connections through phone lines, which computers could interact with through modems. This was, of course, called dial-up internet, and the most popular dial-up service provider at this time was America Online. And in 1994, a series of huge exploits would surface thanks to a new, strange program called AOL. Now, as far as I can tell, you can't download this program anymore. It is now lost media. But it was quite influential and innovative in the scam hacker space. It even allegedly was the first program to ever coin the term phishing. And this alone actually ties in a lot of parallels with the Captain Crunch whistle exploit. If you didn't know, phishing is when a user pretends to be a legitimate company or authorized user and uses that deception to either steal confidential information or gain privileged access to an otherwise prohibited space, like an internet account or premium long-distance phone calls. In the Captain Crunch case, the whistle would pretend to be an official command signal from the phone company, which is what allowed callers to bypass the paywall. AOL would often just pretend to be AOL support. It was a program that allowed hackers to effectively send these fictitious emails to targeted AOL users. These emails would say something along the lines of, "This is AOL support. There was a problem with your account, so we need your email, address, password, and credit card information to fix it." Given that there was not much precedent for phishing-like behavior at this time, an email like this to an everyday 90s user might seem quite believable, and they would willingly respond to the email with all their information. In other words, it wasn't a particularly super advanced program that could crack through secure firewalls. It was really just a great work of social engineering. The program also took advantage of oversights in AOL's code. For example, at this time, AOL would give a new user around 10 hours of free online browsing. But then if they typed in a credit card number on their account, it wouldn't check if it was actually legit until the next billing period. So this program had a credit card wizard that would just randomly generate fake card numbers. Because it wasn't checked until later, this basically gave them extra free access to AOL, kind of like a free long-distance phone call. This credit card exploit would eventually be patched, but still, legitimate AOL users would continue falling for these phishing emails from this program, and its creator decided to spell phishing with a PH, because according to him, a lot of programmers intentionally misspelled things as tradition. So that is the tale of where the term phishing allegedly comes from, and so more people continue to have their information stolen through impersonation. Programs like AOL showed that you didn't necessarily need great hacking ability to breach sensitive information. Instead, you could just be a really good liar. Of course, the instant transmission of information online made this easier and more effective than ever before. It's at around this same time where we see an old scam get repurposed and tailored for the internet: the Nigerian prince email scam. This technically started in the 1970s, known at the time as the 419 scam. The target would get a letter in the mail from an unknown correspondent saying that they are a citizen of Nigeria who opened a bank account in the United States but no longer has access to it. And after years of inactivity, the account will soon be closed. The only way to save the account is to have an American deposit X amount of money into it to keep the account running. As a token of their appreciation, the account holder will give you a share of the account balance, which is often millions of dollars. These messages originated from Nigeria and initially circulated through physical letters in the mail. The term 419 originates from Section 419 of the Nigerian Penal Code, focused on combating fraud. The main bottleneck of these scams was the fact that these letters had to be physically shipped, meaning the senders would have to pay for postage, they would take a long time to arrive, sometimes even getting lost in the process, and they were often only limited to one household per letter. Considering that Section 419 dates to around 1916, you could infer that many people were generally familiar with scam-related junk mail. But with the internet, sending mail was not only free, it was instant and could now be sent per user, not just per household. This made the reach of the scam so much wider, and because more people were now being exposed to it, naturally that meant the number of credulous people went up. Combine this with that uncertainty that the early internet had, and you see an explosion of these Nigerian prince emails now circulating. Making the correspondent someone of higher status adds a sort of ethos to the message, subconsciously making it seem more credible. When the son of the deposed king of Nigeria emails you directly asking for help, you help. His father ran the freaking country, okay? Nowadays, we have the benefit of 2020 hindsight to see how obviously fake these emails are. But at the time, some people lost millions of dollars as a result. A lot of these emails didn't even originate from Nigeria, but the tradition sort of stuck, and that benefit of using a faraway place as the letter's origin added to its ambiguity. This scam is pretty much one of the oldest in the book, in that it doesn't use any technical knowledge to break through secure barriers, but just relies on charm and gullibility. The Nigerian prince emails are much less common now because of how much notoriety they have gained, but its same premise is once again taking on new forms and adapting with technologies. For example, right now, I've been getting emails from what appears to be an AI-generated voice telling me that my $60,000 loan has been approved, and to call them to finalize the deal. Every day, these calls come from a new phone number, so you can't exactly block it. I've been getting these every day for about 6 months now. Now, I might not fall for these, but a lot of people will, particularly the elderly, who may not know a lot about these newer technologies. And all it takes is a few people who fall for it out of thousands to make it profitable. Consequently, awareness for these online scams was growing, and users were becoming hyper-aware of their safety. This would lead to a rather unique byproduct that would occasionally pop up towards the end of the 90s. Virus hoaxes. In 1994, word was going around the internet, once again, through email, that a new computer virus was causing devastating destruction. It was ironically named Good Times. However, based on what it claimed to do, it was anything but a good time. Reports of Good Times stated that simply reading the message that was sent to you would activate the virus on your machine, like a sort of paranormal internet basilisk. The first computer virus to spread to people. It also claimed that the virus could wipe hard drives and even cause monitors to explode. These messages once again used ethos as a way of enhancing credibility, often fictitiously citing the FCC and AOL as sources. This is a very interesting, great example of an early chain letter, because many of its claims were so preposterous, yet its social engineering was still good enough to spread pretty far across the net, and it went on for a couple of years. Now, I would like to think that most people generally thought that this was not a serious threat, even in the 90s where knowledge and understanding of computers was limited, but at the same time, this ended up reaching the New York Times and several newspapers. So, going back to the Nigerian prince example of just reaching enough people, I suppose people will believe just about anything if it gets out there enough. As you would have guessed, the Good Times virus never showed up. And with these publications quickly debunking the rumors, Good Times went down in the books as nothing more than a hoax. Its very existence was a scam in of itself, a sort of callback to the more innocuous forms of online pranking during the internet's infancy, a testament to people's gullibility. In fact, this was confirmed in 1997 by the hacker group Cult of the Dead Cow, who claimed responsibility for starting the rumor. Because after all, you can't get a virus on your computer just by hearing about it. Or can you? I have been talking an awful lot about it in this video. Good luck. If you would like to learn more about peculiar computer viruses that may very well not even be real, you can check out one of my videos on that here, as well as a playlist down below. A special thanks to my Patreon supporters. Check out patreon.com/nationsquid for ad-free and exclusive content. Feel free to buy me a coffee as well. Thanks for watching, everyone.